yourself.
Okay, my name is Tony Schoonover. I am a senior citizen. I was born in 1939. That means I have been 35 times. That makes me 74 years old, and I am being interviewed for my grandson, Josh Shelton, and I'm looking forward to the questions he's going to ask me.
So you served in the Army for how many years?
Well, the Army I was in for 6 years, but I was in the Navy before that for 4 years. And so altogether I've had 10 years active duty time. And in that 6 years I was in the Army, I volunteered in '66 to go to Vietnam. And then I went before a review board in the 17th Cab because they were starting a new unit called, they referred to themselves as LRPs, but it was actually a long-range recon patrol unit where they operated with 6 men. And every volunteer for that unit had to go before an acceptance board. And if you were accepted, well, that's what you wound up doing for the next year. But I was one of 36 was picked for that unit out of 80 people. And then they trained us for 30 days, and then we started running missions. And we operated with just 6 men. We went in 15 minutes before dark by helicopter. Our mission was to recon a 4,000 square meter area for 4 days. And it was to locate the enemy, observe them, see what they were carrying, what kind of weapons they were, how many. And our secondary mission was ambush and POW snatch. And we became very successful at the latter part. And eventually our mission changed to more ambush instead of reconnaissance, although we still maintain the recon nomenclature until December of '67. It changed to the 74th Infantry Detachment Long Range Patrol. And I always said they did that to justify the fact that they were misusing us from our initial job description. And basically that's what I did for 2 years. I volunteered to go there in '66, and I volunteered for another year after that one was up.
So what made you volunteer after you served your first tour to go back to Vietnam?
Well, well, Josh, when I volunteered again, I was still there. I didn't go back to the States and then go back. I did come home for a 30-day leave, which they said was free. Actually, there's nothing free. You have to pay it back whether they tell you that or not. That's a hard question. I think the reason I did it was I liked what I was doing. That sounds like a odd answer to be doing something like that, but I did like what I was doing. I felt I was good at it, and I felt more comfortable in Vietnam than I did in the United States. And that's the way I lived for many, many years after Vietnam and after I got out of the Army. I felt uncomfortable here in this country. But eventually I got to where I felt comfortable. I was in my mid-50s when I started feeling comfortable here.
So when you were serving in the Vietnam War, you received afterwards, you received the Army Commendation Medal, and it is, as it is described, it is a award given for distinguishing oneself by heroism, meritorious achievement, or meritorious service. What did you do during the war that set you apart from others and earned you this prestigious award?
We were running missions in Pleiku back in '67, and this one particular place called Canary Duck was a hot spot for Viet Cong movement, and our mission was to go in and find them if we could and report them, maybe call in artillery or an airstrike. And we would go in 15 minutes before dark. That's how much time you had left of daylight after you exited the helicopter and you ran into the wood line, and you would go in about 25-30 feet and you would just stop and you would listen, because they had, what the enemy had was, they had what we called LZ watchers, landing zone watchers, because they knew how the LRPs operated. And another thing I didn't agree with, which they did do, they would tell the outlying villagers that Americans were going to be operating in the jungles and to stay out of the jungle, which let the Viet Cong know that Americans would be coming in sooner or later. So this particular day we got off. We had stopped and we were listening. We told them on the radio, and I was the RTO at that time, the radio operator. We told them where we were in. And right after I had done my radio transmission, I heard an M79 grenade launcher go off. And then there was an explosion about 25 meters from our position. They did this 3 times. I radioed the command and control ship and I asked if there were any friendlies in the area, because an M79 was an American grenade launcher. But the Viet Cong would get them too when they killed Americans and so on and so forth. And they said no, and I said, well, somebody's reconning by fire down here. And what that means is they try to get you to return fire to reveal your location. And the question was asked, do you want to abort? Well, I relayed that to Sergeant Evans, who was the team leader at the time. And he asked everybody on the team, if one man would have said, let's abort, then we would all done it. But I think nobody wanted to be the first one to say, no, let's get out. We stayed in. The helicopters stayed on station, stayed in the air in our area until about 30 minutes after dark. And by then we had moved back farther. We cleared out an area big enough for all 6 of us to lay down in. And we did not have to take turns on guard duty because nobody slept that night. The next morning we got up and we had what we considered breakfast, and we moved out about, I would say, 150 meters to an area. When we walked through the thickest part of the jungle, we parted the jungles and we observed a trail which was heavily camouflaged, especially from the air, because the trees would grow over an area and the Viet Cong were using this trail. So we set up there and we watched them come down that trail. We watched, they were carrying automatic weapons, they were carrying crew-served weapons like mortars and whatever. And we did that all day long, and we'd report in. I'd report in code. We'd send it by code. I'd report in how many people we saw, what weapons they were carrying, if they were carrying rice rolls, whatever. And that night, you never stay in the same place that you've been in all day long observing. You always get up and you move. So we moved less than 50 feet back from where we were observing this trail, and we set up for the night. Well, up to that point, it was uneventful. There was another team operating in another AO to the south of us, and it was Sergeant Jacofinko's team, and they made contact with the Viet Cong that we were observing, and they got into a firefight, and in a this graveyard, is what I understand. And I was monitoring the radio, listening to what they were saying. And so after they were extracted, nobody was hurt. We listened to the Viet Cong come back down the trail, moaning, crying. Those that had been wounded and shot, they were moved down the trail. Nobody slept that night either. So that was 2 nights we didn't have any sleep. The 3rd day we got up, and it was 8 o'clock in the morning, 0800 hours, and we were getting ready to move out. I heard movement to our front, and we did not talk. If we talked at all, we whispered to one another. But in this case, I went, snapped my fingers, and I pointed to my eye, and I pointed in the direction that I heard the voices. And everybody looked, and we were being tracked by 11 people. And the tracker, he was following the same route of march we had taken to get to where we were at there. And when we, certain part of that area, there was a dead tree that we stepped over. This tracker stepped over that dead tree, came down that path that we had come down. He was, like I say, he was following us. And we were bunched up, because as soon as we saw him, we dropped down. Because the old saying is, if you can see them, they can see you. And we were exposed. We were out in the open. And the tracker, he saw where we had went down and set up to observe that trail, and he started to go that way. And by then, everybody in back of him had bunched up. And I kept saying to myself, if I can't speak for the other guys, I kept saying to myself, just keep going, just keep going. And he stopped because he saw where we had come back to where we were at. And he turned and he started towards us, and all those people were in back of him. They were watching him instead of what was in front of him. They don't pay attention to him. He was less than 2 feet from us when we opened fire. It was a slaughter. We killed all of them except the last guy in that patrol. They were all carrying M2 carbines, which are American made. They probably got them off the Vietnamese army when they killed them. But there was a sharp burst of automatic fire from the last guy in that patrol, hit Sergeant Potter in the shoulder. And so we had 1 wounded, we had 11 dead VC, and I called for extraction. And we made our way back to the same LZ we had used prior to that, which is not recommended, but that was the fastest way out of there. And that's what happened. So they gave me medal. Why, I don't know. You know, I never wanted it to begin with, but that's the way it did. So that was my job, and I did it. And I always say when somebody says, "What'd you get it for?" I said, "Doing my job." That was basically it. Yeah. That was the bad part about that job. Jungle warfare is the dirtiest warfare you can get into because it's sneaking. You hit them, you run, you set up again, and you hit them again, and then you run again. And I don't know. It's just, I don't think there's anything honorable about it, but that was our job. Yeah, so I did that for 26 months and 3 days. I had 2 30-day free leaves from Vietnam. 30 days leave with 15 days travel time. And they tacked it on, so the 3 days I got, instead of 24 months, I served 26 months and 3 days. So, and I came home a month early about that because I brought a buddy's body back to Queens, New York. I was one of his pallbearers in '68.
So after the war, you said earlier that you struggled to kind of return to the normal life. And so how long was that?
Oh, that's an ongoing battle even now. But I went to therapy. Every once in a while I still go. They put me on 50 milligrams of sertraline, which is a medication for mood swings, depression, and they upped it twice. It's now 150 milligrams, and it works. It will not let me dwell on anything. If something like what we were talking about, it keeps trying to come back, but I can't concentrate on it. It won't let me, which is good, and because I still have trouble sleeping. I haven't had a good night's sleep in years. I have sleep apnea, and that machine is supposed to let you sleep for a whole 8 hours or all night long. No, I don't. I get up at 2 o'clock every morning, just like I have when I first got home from Vietnam. I still get up at 2 o'clock in the morning. When I married Nana and had Jeff and Jill there, I'd get up at 2 o'clock in the morning. I would hear things that other people couldn't hear, and then it was just my imagination, you know. And, I would get, when I got upset, I was not very pleasant to be around. And this medication, the only thing it won't do, it doesn't stop me from getting mad. But as soon as I get mad, I get over it because I can't dwell on it as much as I'd like to, but I can't. So I am partially back to the way I used to be before I went in the Army. And I'd much rather be the way I am now than what I was before. Yeah. I'm a lot more pleasant to be around. But it's something, it's going to be with me the rest of my life, and you know, I can accept it. And when I was having trouble, I mean, really having trouble, especially when I drank, all that nonsense is because I was going to therapy when I was in my 40s, and all that nonsense that I'm trying to block out, when I drank, it would come out, and I'd turn into an ugly drunk. So I had a decision to make. Do I continue the way I'm going until I either kill somebody or somebody kills me, or do I want to make a life for myself, and do I want to have a family? Well, I decided I wanted to have a family. And the first thing they said, if you don't stop your blankety blank drinking, you're never going to have anything. You're not going to have a life. So I quit. I have not had a drink in 34 years, and I love it. And so I did that, and then I started going to therapy and started spilling my guts. And first time I went, I cried like a baby, and because I was talking about things that I never wanted to talk about. But the more you talk about it, the more boring it becomes. You talk about it so much, you don't want to mention it again. And that's basically where I'm at now. I just, the little part about my ARCOM, that's just a small part of, that I'm not even going to get into about what we did. And, but as my brother-in-law asked me one time, if you had it all to do over again, would you do it again? And I said yes. And and he said, well, you wouldn't be you if you'd have said no. And I said, that's right. I said, I did it. Even though if as I told my head shrinker, as I told Dr. Freeman, I said, the best thing that ever happened to me was PTSD. And he looked at me like I had two heads. And he said, why would you say something like that? I said, Doc, it forced me to stop drinking and take a look at myself. I said, that's why. And that's the truth. Yeah. Yeah. So it was good. Alcohol killed my father. He was 50 years old when he died. He drank himself to death. And alcoholism ran in the family. And I broke the chain. You know, I wasn't going to do it again. So that's basically it. You know, it's and every once in a while I'll go to a reunion. I really don't like to, but the two that I've been to, the guys that I've reconnected with over the years, we don't talk about it. We talk about other things, which is great. You know. And I don't know if I told you, in '09 I made my first parachute jump in 40 years at Fort Benning.
I've seen the picture on the refrigerator.
Yeah. Yeah, and then I got harassed by some of the other guys that were with me. They said, man, we didn't know you were pushing 70 when you did that. I said, I wasn't pushing anything. I said, I'm only 39. What are you talking about? Yeah.
So now, what are some things that you enjoy doing now?
I used to enjoy golf, but not, I mean, I enjoy playing. I enjoy playing with you guys because I don't put any expectations on myself, so I don't get upset with myself. In fact, I laugh at myself. But what I really enjoy doing is clogging. I learned how to clog when I came here to the villages. And dragon boat racing. I got into that last year, and when the team that I'm on now, when all of them comes back this month and we start doing it again, I'll do it with them for 3 months, and then I think I'm going to go with the Leathernecks. That's Marines, Army, Navy, Air Force, whatever. They're all in that, and I think I'm going to go with that full time. And so I'll be doing it 3 days a week along with clogging 3 days a week. So my plate will be full, and then Judy will get me out of the house. Nana won't have to put up with me. Yeah. Yeah, but, you know, that's what I do with myself. And occasionally we like to travel. And do things like that.
What other t-shirts do you have, Papaw?
Oh, I have about 30 of them. I don't think you want me to go through all of them. It's one of my favorites that I love to wear. That really gets the remarks. Mm-hmm.
Didn't think you were going to be doing a fashion show, did you, when you did this?
No, I did not.
So, what other ones do you have?
All right, here we go. This is just a small sample. Save time, let's just assume I'm never wrong.
Oh. And this is the person that everyone knows now.
This is it.
Isn't that the truth?
Finally, somebody that understands me. 15 miles an hour. It's like a cooter car. Put, 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 put. The interviewer's not supposed to laugh.
I wasn't laughing.
Oh, you were grimacing. Okay. All
I
right.
wasn't.
Okay. Here's a good one. I love this one. One I don't have is with me right now because it's being washed is the one that says, "Don't annoy the crazy person." I wear that when I go to VA. Nurses laugh. Holy crap, Larry, is that you? Are you gonna edit that? Oh,
Yeah, I'll
okay.
edit it.
Okay.
I'll edit it.
Okay, good.